transcription pedal. Dr. Gray would send me the audio file via Dropbox, because that way, it's just a little bit easier. It's so cool the way we did it. And that way we could see the progress was made through Dropbox. And then ExpressScribe, so you drag the audio file to this little main window, and you have all of these cool tools that could help you efficiently transcribe the words and stop it in the middle, go back if you mishear a word and everything. And my first interview, I did not use the transcription pedal, and it took me a good, over 30 hours to do this. And usually, I mean, they told us it would take you 8 hours. That was such a lie. It took me so much. So I used the special transcription pedal the second time around, and it worked like a charm. It cut the time in half. And so you press on the right, it goes back. You press on the left, it goes forward. And so if there's just a word missing, or if there's like a bus passes by and you don't hear it, the pedal makes it so much quicker. So I'm very happy to be using that. So there's 4 components to the transcription. First, you have to type the interview, so using the ExpressScribe and the transcription pedal. So, and according to Dr. Gray's format, you just have to type everything you hear on the tape. And it's sort of hard because these are not necessarily native speakers of English. Some of them are really good at English, but some of them, it's their second or third language maybe. So there's a lot of ums. I mean, it's like natural speaking. And after you finish the hour, I did timestamping. So the timestamp allows you to sort of divide the interview into according to time and subject. So whenever the interview went to a separate topic, you put the time and then the heading of what was introduced later. So the timestamping was helpful for a few reasons. First, it helps structure the summary at the end. It also helps you figure out where you are in the interview if you have to go back. I always did a second check through the transcript on the inaudible sections, and I'll show you a clip of this later. And it also helps the editors and the people who make the website or the database plug in the pieces into the sections. And then after finishing the interview, I would summarize the content and create tag terms. So the tag terms are useful for the database because they'll help researchers when they enter a particular term, say Reebok, a word, they type that into the search engine, and then all the interviews will come up where the Reebok has been spoken of. So I'll show you on the database what that is. I also edited one transcript from a fellow intern, so I would fill in missing words or Arabic words. So this is where the timestamping really helps. My colleague typed in Arabic title and gave me the time. I don't know if I'm supposed to touch this. Sure. Okay. And so I would go back to this particular time and just listen again and try and figure out the title. So I took 3 years of Arabic at McGill, so I was able to really understand. But I mean, some of this is in Egyptian dialect. I call it Egyptian because they don't say G, they say Ga. And so it's pretty difficult. And they also don't say qaf. So instead of saying like kahwa, like coffee, they say like ehwe. So it's so difficult. So I really don't blame people who do have knowledge of Arabic but didn't understand the titles. And also, I would review the transcript summary and make sure everything was edited and create tag terms. So we also worked with the Center for Oral History and Digital Storytelling at Concordia, and they had a slew of workshops that really introduced us to the database software that Dr. Gray will be using to build her database. So one of the workshops was on January 15th, and it familiarized with the 4 levels of the database. So this is where the transcript portion would go, right here. And then I hope this is clear enough. This is not from Dr. Gray's, if Dr. Gray's is still being made, but it's from another project from the Stories Matter. But each of these boxes represent one of the places where we put one of the components of the transcript. So the transcript in the center, the summary down here, and the tag terms. The frequency of the tags shows up here, and then the list of interviewee go here. There's also places you can add tabs here for information on the person transcribing or on Dr. Gray's project, or even on biographical information. In the seminars too, we had weekly seminars in downtown Concordia. So we had Concordia students, volunteers, sometimes, did your son come maybe? What's his place?
You met him there once when we came on.
I think he came, and we had people from the Oral History Center, from McGill, people taking credit, not credit. So it was a good mix of people who spoke English, Arabic, French, and had experiences from all around the world. So we were able to really see, people's progress on the transcript, and share ideas on what was happening in Egypt and perspectives in the Middle East. We also watched a documentary, The Square, and Maidan, on the revolution in Egypt. One of the reasons why I liked the seminars was because we had classmates' presentations on the transcript. So even though I didn't put in the work, I could still see what people were working on and what they had learned in the transcript, which was really cool because, first of all, transcription takes a long time. So for me to really understand or hear what other people are saying on these interviews would have taken a lifetime. So I really liked hearing from my colleagues what they enjoyed about the interview, what they found difficult or interesting. And another reason I liked the seminars was because we had special presentations for the final conference, which I'll be talking about after this. And so it allowed me, it allowed me to get feedback on my presentation. I did it on military trials for civilians, and enabled me to refine my presentation, thank God, and cut it down to 10 minutes. And we had this conference yesterday downtown. So I presented Justice Denied for my final conference. It was on military trials for civilians, and I presented it from the rule of law perspective. So I opened with Rachel Belton's description of rule of law: prospective, publicly promulgated, and universal laws, government bound by law and accountability. There's a few more, and law and order. So these four components comprise rule of law. And my question was, do we have rule of law in Egypt or rule by law? And let's look at military trials for civilians in Egypt to see which distinction Egypt embodies. And I found that 93% of the defendants on trial in Egypt in military courts were convicted. So between January and September 2010, over 8,000 civilians were convicted and under 800 were acquitted, which is really just a miscarriage of justice if you look at the procedural differences. So I concluded that Egypt right now is under rule by law, which differs from martial law, and that civil society is striving for a rule of law. All right, so now I'm going to try and relate it to social sustainability. I found this really cool diagram that breaks down sustainability, and there's a space right here for my project in the social section. So social sustainability is basically the investment of people in the well-being of their social fabric. And it's maintaining a healthy society through democracy, procedural and substantive, through maturity, meaning accountability and responsibility for your actions, quality of life in terms of safety and protection, but legitimate safety and protection rather than force, and social cohesion, or the interaction between legitimate groups and individuals. And what I found was that from the people I worked with, or from the interviews I worked on, so the people that were recorded, and even working with my colleagues and Dr. Gray, these people really translated the theory of social sustainability into practice. And it's something that a lot of history books are not really good at. You see what happened, the revolution happened, and Morsi came to power and then he fell. But we don't often hear the stories, and this is part of the reason why I think this project is so interesting and really valuable for history and for students who will be learning about the Egyptian Revolution later. So my definition of social sustainability, which I found from Woodcroft, was that there are questions to be addressed about power, voice, access to resources, decision-making, and accountability. Key issues are around legitimacy and boundaries. Who are the stakeholders involved in promoting social sustainability? So this slide will focus on the three people whose interviews I worked with. Lemi Senegal Nakash is the wife of Hisham Mubarak, who's the eponym of the Hisham Mubarak Law Center. She was such an amazing woman. You could feel the emotion through her voice, and she really cared about this. I mean, her activist career started when she was really young. She met her husband when she was 19, but she was already invested in civil society in Egypt, organizing protests, contacting other people, and after she married Hisham, she also took it upon herself to spread his vision to his colleagues and throughout, even to his adversaries. So she was talking mainly about her husband in this interview. So she was saying that her husband, for example, would give a voice to Islamists in the courtroom. So he would defend them at their trials, even though he was a communist or he was not an Islamist. And so I found this interesting because when we think of the Middle East, we always like to put people in boxes. We like to say, these people are religious people, these people are secularists. But here's a secularist communist defending members of the Islamist groups or members of the Muslim Brotherhood who have been wrongly convicted. So I thought that really spoke to his power of voice and really made him a stakeholder in promoting Egyptian social sustainability. This is Ahmed Saif al-Islam. He's one of the co-founders of the Hisham Mubarak Law Center. And he was really interesting because not only did he finish his law degree in prison, but he was also tortured, and this led him to take up cases that are so difficult. And in his interview, it's all very nonchalant.